Hey there, storytellers. Welcome back to my channel. I know it has been a good long while since I have posted. Today I'm just gonna be doing just a little chat. You also gotta get involved. Hello. So I don't know how many people out there get this way. I know there are plenty of people who love to reread books, and there are plenty of people who don't ever reread books, and then there's the people who might be like me who tend to reread certain books very often. I do the same thing with TV shows, and I've realized that they are all centered around autumn. And if you're familiar with my Instagram bio, I'm a self-proclaimed Buffy enthusiast, and every year around September, I'm like, okay, it's time to go. It's time to watch Buffy again. And I feel the urge to reread books, usually around the end of the summer, beginning of September, and sometimes I do. There's my favorite book, The Body by Stephen King. I have definitely given into and reread many times, but I haven't given in to the urge to reread on other books, and I've been feeling really nostalgic lately, in particular for the first book I have ever read, which was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, and I don't think I have ever reread this book, even though I really love it, and I'm going to open myself up to a little bit of drama here and let you know that I have never actually read the Lord of the Rings books, even though I have seen the movies and loved the story and the premise of the whole world. I have never actually gotten to them. I have them, I just haven't read them. And I thought, well, I'm feeling really nostalgic. I'm feeling like I want to reread things. It's autumn, it's time. I thought I would go ahead and give... No. Don't look in it. You hurt your kitty eyes. You hurt your kitty eyes. So I was thinking, it's autumn, it's time. I'm going to reread The Hobbit. And part of my thinking is I've been really getting back into fantasy mode. I've been really wanting to read it. So I thought I'd start with the first book that I've ever read and segue, hopefully, into the Lord of the Rings series over the next few months. I don't anticipate finishing them all very quickly because there's a lot to go through in those books. But I wanted to start here. I wanted to start here and see where it takes me. I think it'll sort of reawaken my love of fantasy. I haven't lost it, but I just haven't been overly drawn to it either, even though I kind of want to be, and I think it's just been one of those things where you can't really push it. You have to just let your soul, or whatever you go by, decide, okay, now is the time to reread these things, or to get back into them, and I think it's easy to get off track with work and life and stress and all that other stuff, and I myself am guilty of being off track just because I've had a lot going on, and I had a few pretty big life decisions to sort of mull over and think about, in addition to trying to actually get my first novel written, which, spoiler alert, I'm like way farther behind on than I mean to be. I'm meant to be finished at this point, but I'm not. I have quite a deep world that I've dived into or created, and I'm still sort of fleshing it out and figuring out how the plot of the story is gonna go at this point, and I was just struggling, and one of the best pieces of writer wisdom that I have ever heard was from Stephen King, and basically he said, to be a good writer, you have to read a lot. And I have not been reading a lot. I've been wanting to read a lot. I've been wanting to immerse myself in stories and worlds, and in one way, I have sort of immersed myself in a new world. I have seen the Charmed series in bits and pieces, but I've never actually watched all of it, and I don't know why, because it's definitely a show that's entirely up my alley, but I chose to not watch it till recently, and so I've fallen victim to binge watching, as I do. But I've also been wanting to really read, and I'm hoping, I should say, that starting with where it all began will really reignite my imagination and my love for reading and books, and I've been wanting to reread this for months, and I keep feeling like I need to be reading it for whatever reason, and I'm just gonna stop ignoring the signal that my self is clearly sending. Clearly I'm meant to be reading this, so I'm going to dive back into the world of The Hobbit and use my fun Ink and Wonder design bookmark that's double-sided. It's Lord of the Rings themed, but I feel it is still appropriate for putting in The Hobbit because they're in the same universe, and this is a prequel. That being said, I think I'm also going to give in to book nostalgia a lot in the next coming weeks and see sort of where it takes me. I have very many books that I want to read, and I'm sort of struggling to know where I want to read and where I want to go. So I think I'm going to give in to the nostalgic feelings and reread The Hobbit. I think I'm going to reread The Body by Stephen King and see where they take me, because they usually satisfy sort of that craving you get when you're feeling nostalgic and you feel like you want to reread something or re-experience something, to the point where you're then able to move on and pick something new. It might be something in a similar vein, it might be something totally different. Either way, I'm open to whatever direction it goes, but I think I really do have to get my book nostalgia out of the way first. I can't be the only one that gets nostalgic over books and has reread them on several occasions. I know I'm not, but I don't know to what extent other people just sort of feel nostalgic and maybe think about rereading it but read something else, or they feel nostalgic and then feel like they can't read anything else until they deal with that nostalgia, because clearly your heart is wanting a very specific thing and nothing else is really going to fill that except for that thing that you're feeling nostalgic about. So whatever kind of reader you are, let me know down below. Do you reread things? Do you not reread things ever? Have you ever reread something and had it not be as great as you remembered it? I personally have never had that happen. I am a total obsessive, so once I love something, I love it. I'm going to be obsessed with it always. It's never going to go away. I have never loved something and then hated it. I have experienced with TV shows, I love rewatching the part, if the first season's what really got you hooked and you really loved that, and then the next few seasons are also really good and they're great, and then they sort of trickle off. I've definitely experienced that with many shows, Buffy included. There is a set of seasons right smack dab in the middle that are just not my favorite. They're still really great. I don't dislike the characters or anything like that. There's a new guy, main love interest, and he's okay. He's nice. He's fine. He just doesn't quite do it for me in terms of like really loving their relationship and where it was going. So those seasons aren't really my favorite. I tend to either skip them sometimes, or if I'm feeling a full binge, I will watch them, but I don't pay as much attention as I do to earlier and later seasons. And I think I am that way with books. I have ones that I really enjoyed and have reread, but not quite to the obsessive level as I have with others. It just depends, but I have noticed that all of my nostalgia things are sort of centered around the start of the fall, and I find that interesting because traditionally fall is very symbolic of things starting to die in winter, or winter's coming where everything's dead, and then things can be reborn. And I find it very interesting because often people tend to interpret that as a negative. Things are dying, you're losing the life. It's not really a happy time when you're using it symbolically. I mean, I know people don't necessarily feel that way in real life. But I disagree with that symbolic interpretation of autumn to an extent. And I'm entirely biased because my birthday's right in the middle of autumn, so there's a ton of bias there. But I tend to interpret fall as that moment that people say you have right before death, or that it has been widely said that you have right before death, where you've sort of had time to reflect over everything and you have time to settle and be at peace, or your soul does. And I always view autumn in that way. It is a time to sort of reflect and go back to things that were good and maybe you need to go back to in order to sort of symbolically die and be able to come back. And I always view that in a very personal way. I always feel like I am cycling through bits and pieces of myself. Especially around autumn time, I always really gear up to make big changes in the autumn. I gear up to sort of reevaluate where I am and what I'm doing and make changes that are necessary, get rid of things that aren't helping, get rid of things that just have had time to run their course and aren't necessarily helping or hurting. They're just there. And I have time to reintroduce new things that I think will gear me up to start the new year better and stronger. I feel like fall is a time of evolution, even though it's most closely associated with death. So I think that is sort of why I feel nostalgic in the fall, is that I'm just looking to reflect and go back to what was good and what inspired me and what it is I'm looking for in life. It's a time for me to recenter. And so that is what I am doing. I am recentering, I'm rediscovering what made me love reading and fantasy, especially in the first place, and I'm rediscovering why I love stories and thinking about where I want to go and how I want to move forward. I have a lot of things that I want to do, and I'm working on all of them. Making more videos included, making blog posts, and possibly a few other things on top of getting my first novel done, hopefully, and moving on to other writing projects because I have several, and I think if I can just get myself over whatever mental block of a mountain that I have created in terms of writing this first novel, I think if I can climb that mountain and get through it, then the others won't necessarily be easier, but I will have removed the doubts and the struggle that go along with writing to an extent, and I'll have allowed myself to free up my heart and let the stories flow in the way that they need to. And I think that's part of my issue on this one story, is I've got a lot of mental blocks at the moment, and I'm just trying to chop through them so that I can move on and do the things that I know I'm meant to be doing. And I mean that I'm meant to be doing it in a good way, in that I want to, and that I'm driven towards them, I'm passionate about them. And I've just sort of allowed things to get in the way and keep me from working on those things. And it's just time that I stop letting things sit in my way. So I'm just gonna go revisit my past a little bit, and hopefully that'll remind me about where I need to go, and it'll give me the inspiration to do so. So that is really all I have to say for the moment. It's just a quick little update, quick little chat. Regular videos will hopefully be resuming this next coming week, and I can't wait to make them for you, and I hope you enjoy this one. Let me know if you can relate to any of these feelings. I'd love to hear from any of you guys down in the comments below, just about how you feel about the symbolism of autumn, or how you feel about book nostalgia and rereading, or how you feel about writing or stories in general. Just share your thoughts with me. I'd love to hear them. For now, I'm going to go. I will catch you guys next time. I just realized I forgot to say, if you want to keep up with me and all my bookish adventures, don't forget you can subscribe and ring the little bell so that you don't miss a beat. Now I'm going to go. I will catch you guys next time. Bye.